yourself. Gosh almighty, woman, God don't ask for no such a promise. It was the only way I could find peace. And now I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm tired. Mr. Blakesley, please go to bed. What you and somebody else done, love, that's over with now. Same as my life with Miss Maddaloo is over with. And that hand I ain't got no more. Ever what you done can't be no worse than me loving you whilst I sat by her deathbed. But ain't no point in me giving you up now that she can't get hurt. Ain't no point in you messing up what you and me could have just 'cause you and that dang Mr. Texas. It wasn't him. Her whisper was so weak I barely heard. But don't ask me to talk about it. Clayt couldn't take the knowledge. You couldn't either. You told him what you won't tell me? Yes, I thought... She sounded about to cry. I thought I shouldn't have any secrets from the man I was about to marry. I thought if Clayt really loved me, how stupid I was. I wondered if she meant stupid to tell him or stupid to think he wouldn't mind. He thought I was so pure, not like the others. You understand? Pure, Mr. Blakesley? Undefiled? Silence. Defiled can't be the right word for you, love. Or don't them Methodist preachers talk none about a forgiving God? Ain't you heard how Jesus said, go and sin no more? He didn't say, go waller in your sin. I hadn't sinned. Silence. Miss Love, you don't make no sense at all, not to me. If you ain't sinned, how come all this here talk about you ain't pure no more? Shh, you're talking loud, Mr. Blakesley. And she lowered her own voice. I can only say that Clayt, right after I told Mr. McAllister, he talked just like you, said it didn't matter. But, well, as you know, he finally broke the engagement. And you'd want to get out of being married to me too, Mr. Blakesley, if I told you. Then gosh almighty, woman, don't tell me. I don't give a good doggone, and I don't want to hear about it. I just want you to be my wife. No, no, please. Please, Mr. Blakesley, don't touch me. Go back to bed, please. I snored softly as I heard Grandpa's hand on the doorknob. I heard her whisper, but I can't bear for you to think. I mean, what happened wasn't... I couldn't help what happened. His hand left the doorknob. Then it must have been somebody you loved. Yes. She was crying. Well, dang it, why didn't you marry him? Good gosh almighty, Miss Love, are you saying you got mixed up with a married man? It still wasn't my fault, but I thought you didn't care. I don't. Living a lie like I done, I ain't got no call to throw no stones. I ain't asking are you pure, but I know I can't stand it if you gonna hold a married man up in front of me like a picture for the rest of my life, saying I got to look at you and him. I ain't your Mr. Texas, but I can't take it if you go and dish out little bitty hints about it every time your conscience starts to hurt. That'd keep me wondering and maybe jealous. God almighty, Miss Love, forget all that, and just let me love you and make you happy. His whispered voice was angry. Why'd you have to raise this up from the dead anyhow? You gonna put the past on and wear it like sackcloth and ashes the rest of your days? Miss Love was crying. Please, Mr. Blakesley, be fair. This wouldn't have come up if you had let me stay what I agreed to be, just your housekeeper. Grandpa left the room before Miss Love finished the word housekeeper. Came out and shut the door. I knew by the harsh breathing that he was furious. On the other side of the door, Miss Love lay down on the cot and muffled her crying in the pillow. I didn't see how in the world Grandpa could walk out on her like that. He started to pace the floor, but the boards creaked, and I reckon he was scared he'd wake me up. Shivering, he jerked his spiffy new suit coat off the back of the chair, put it around him, and stood at the window in the moonlight, trying to get a hold of himself. Every minute or so, he'd scratch his head like he had cooties worse than Hosey Roach. I must have dozed off, but I waked with a start when he turned the doorknob by my head and went back in there. I reckon Miss Love was too tired to get up. She whispered, Go on to bed, Mr. Blakesley. There's nothing more to say. I'll deed back the house and leave cold Sassy soon as I can arrange it. Then you can get an annulment and marry that other lady. What you talking about? He whispered back. What dang other lady? You said there was one other woman in Cold Sassy you thought you could stand if I... Oh, that. I just made her up. Like a good salesman makes up that somebody else is waiting with the money if and you don't take what he's selling. Miss Love, after all I done told you tonight, don't you know there ain't nobody in the world I want to live with except you? Dogged woman, I love you. And then he went down on the cot with her and they were kissing again. At some point amid the sighs and moans and murmurs, Miss Love pulled away and whispered, "It was my..." Her voice was shaken so I couldn't hear the words she said. Grandpa didn't either. "What'd you say?" "It was my father. My father. I said it was my father, Mr. Blakesley." "You mean..." He got up off the bed and she did too. "God almighty. Miss Love, you ain't got no call to tell me a thing like that." She couldn't talk for crying. "Shh," Grandpa whispered. "Shh, it don't matter now. Shh, don't shush me. It does matter. And I'm going to stop crying and tell you everything. Sir, please don't say hush." And she got a hold of herself and she talked. And she talked and talked low and fast. "No matter what you say, Mr. Blakesley, you won't want me for a wife. It's too awful. But I'm going to tell you. When I finish, maybe you'll pity me or maybe you'll be sick of me, but at least you'll know I couldn't help it. Maybe you won't be angry." Her voice shook so at first that she was hard to understand, but she got out that it happened when she was 12 years old. "You don't have to tell me, Miss Love," Grandpa protested. "I do have to, so don't interrupt." I doubted she remembered that I was just 2 feet away, and I forgot about trying to sound asleep, but they wouldn't have noticed if I'd started banging on the wall. We lived in 3 rooms upstairs in somebody's house. I had a little cot like this one in a small room next to what we used as a sitting room. Their bed was in the sitting room. Mama had heart trouble, Mr. Blakesley. Everybody knew she was dying, and the lady and man downstairs helped her all they could. They'd gone somewhere that night. I'm sure it wouldn't have happened if they'd been home. Well, I woke up when Father came in drunk as usual, and I heard Mama coughing and crying. She asked him for some water, but Mr. Blakesley, Father just laughed. Laughed. "Don't, Miss Love." She didn't hear. Her voice had got mechanical, like she was reciting a story she'd read in the newspaper, one that didn't have anything to do with her. After Mama's coughing subsided, she said, "Timothy, when I'm gone, you will take care of Love, won't you?" I'd heard her say that sort of thing many times, and it always made him mad. I just thought he never wanted her to talk about dying, as if it wouldn't happen if she didn't say the words. But that night he suddenly screamed a man's name at her. "He's her daddy. Tell him to take care of her." There was an awful silence, and then Mama said, "Hush, Love might hear you. And you know it's not so, Timothy. He married somebody else, remember? Years before I even met you." Father said that didn't prove a thing. He was so drunk, Mr. Blakesley. He cursed and said, "We were married exactly 1 week, Cleo, when you called me his name. I won't ever forget that." Mama said it didn't mean she'd been seeing him, but Father wasn't listening. He said, "You were carrying his baby. Admit it. Why else would you have married a man like me?" She was crying, but she got out something like, "God help me. I didn't know what you were like, but as God is my witness, I was not pregnant." Father just laughed. "Why was she born in 8 months? Answer me that." He shouted at her like she was deaf. "She is his child, ain't she?" "Hush up, Miss Love," Grandpa pleaded. "You don't have to." "I have to." Mama was crying and went into the most awful fit of coughing, but he just cursed her. It was awful listening to them. Then I heard Father stagger towards my room, yelling, "By God, I'll show you what I think the truth is." As he came in where I was, he was still yelling at Mama. I'll never forget his words. "Would a man kill his own flesh and blood, Cleo?" I heard her scream, and I screamed. I tried to get under the cot, but he caught my arm. Then he said, "Oh, she's too pretty just to kill. Cleo, listen to me. Would I take my own daughter? No, by God. But by God, I can take another man's daughter." Miss Love's voice sunk to an awful whisper. "And then he raped me. Raped me, Mr. Blakesley. I tried to fight him off, but Grandpa must have started shaking her. "I hear you, Miss Love. Don't say that word again." The whole time he was screaming, "You know what I'm doing in here, Cleo?" But she didn't answer. Finally he left, stumbled down the stairs and went away. When I got to Mama, she was on the floor in the hall unconscious. I held her for what seemed like hours. When the people who lived below came home, they got the doctor. She sighed a long sigh. Mama had been trying to get to me, but she passed out. We talked about it later, she and I. She said I had two choices. I could dwell on this the rest of my life, let it make me scared of everybody and bitter against Father, or I could forgive him and put my hand in God's and live my life. Something she said, well, I realized Mama didn't know I realized she hadn't heard anything after he screamed, "Would a man kill his own flesh and blood?" So I never told her what really happened. She had suffered enough. But all the years after, I never forgot what she said about forgiving him. And I thought I had. I even got over feeling defiled, till I told Clayt and he did what he did. So, Mr. Blakesley, now you know. You don't have to wonder. Just accept that I was defiled and hated, and I can never be anybody's wife. I don't even want to be a wife. I'll leave cold Sassy as soon as I can. Grandpa's voice was hoarse. It don't make no difference, Miss Love. I believed Mr. McAllister when he said that. Never again. Leave me alone, Mr. Blakesley. Go to bed and leave me alone. Damn it, woman. Damn it, Where's your daddy now? I don't know. Died drunk, probably. We never saw him again. He didn't come to Mama's funeral. There was absolute silence in that room then, except they were both breathing hard. I thought sure Grandpa would try to comfort her. Make her see how much he loved her, how nothing mattered now except to forget all that and let him take care of her. Maybe he would have, but she said to him in a voice cold as metal, I said, leave me alone. And he did. Grandpa stalked out, shut the door, and stood there by the bed shaking. I never saw him madder. I watched as he tiptoed over to the chest, raised the lid, pulled out a quilt, wrapped it around him. He stood by the window for the longest kind of a time, then knelt down by the windowsill and covered his face with his hand. Grandpa was crying, but he didn't make a sound except a hoarse gasp when he had to breathe. At some point, I knew he had gone to praying. It must have been an hour or more before he came to bed. I don't think he slept at all. I know I didn't. As soon as I heard Miss Gussie in the kitchen, I bounced out of bed. Better get up, Grandpa. Man from Athens might be here early. Boy, howdy, I slept like a log. Hope I didn't root you, sir. I wouldn't know, son. He looked like he'd been beat up, but he said he slept like the dead. Reckon we better get Miss Love up? I asked. Without waiting for his answer, I called through the door. Miss Love? Hate to wake you up, but that mechanic could be here any time now. We slept like the dead in here. We raring to go. It was a nice breakfast with Miss Gussie and Mr. Nolly. Nobody would have guessed how mad Grandpa and Miss Love were at each other. The mechanic came at 7 o'clock. Soon as he fixed the radiator and cleaned the oil and grime off the engine, we took the Jamesons for a quick ride and then left Cushy Springs. If Grandpa had ridden home in the back seat with his arm around Miss Love, I'd have thought everything I heard was just a bad dream. But he rode up front with me.